So at the time in 2017, switching over into 2018, I got very good at convincing people that I'm fine. And that one, we was about $400,000.
People don't connect with your product first. They connect with you and what pulls them in, your story. I'm Stephen Stanberry, and this is The Business Behind the Story, a podcast for entrepreneurs who know that growth isn't just about tactics, it's about trust. And trust starts with story. Because behind every thriving business is a story most people never heard. That's what we're here to uncover. Welcome back to The Business Behind the Story. I'm Stephen Stanberry. Today's guest is a master of pivot, Chantaeu Munroe. She spent 9 years inside the engine room of Jamaica's financial sector at Sagicor. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Marketing, the corporate stability and the trajectory every young professional dreams of. But in 2017, while the spreadsheets kept moving, her world stopped. She faced a devastating personal loss that a banking salary couldn't fix. Today, she's the CEO of CKM Healing Consultancy, helping corporate giants and individuals move past trauma. We're going to look at the business she built, but more importantly, the story that built her. Chantaeu, how are you? Thanks for joining.
I am doing good. Thank you for having me. I'm so proud of you.
I'm so proud of you too. It's my absolute pleasure to have you here. So we've spoken a lot over the years, but this is the first time we're going to have a sit down like this. So I want to start with a question that doesn't usually come first. You lost twins in 2017 while working your full-time job. You still had to show up to work, hold it together, and perform. What was going through your mind during this time, and what part of you started to break?
At the time when it happened, I was keeping going. Everything felt normal while everyone around me was going through grief. I was still keeping my composure, keeping it going. So I'd show up with a smile. I would pretty much show up almost numb, high functioning but numb. And so at the time in 2017 when it happened, rolling over into 2018, because it was December 8th in 2017 and carrying over into 2018. And so life just continued until literally 4 years later is when I started to break, So everything was normal. At least so I thought.
I've dabbled a bit in psychology. And we know the stages of grief. First, you have the shock stage. And then I can't remember that other stage, but the acceptance. So is it that you didn't accept it during that 4-year cycle?
No, I didn't accept it. I just kept going because one, I was trying to ensure everyone around me was fine. And two, I didn't know how to accept it yet. And so it brings me to the point of saying grieving is a process, right? There's no timeline to it.
Yeah, definitely. You were the one carrying the twins, but you mentioned everyone around you. You were trying to make sure they were okay. Everyone like who?
My mother, my sisters, my boyfriend at the time, and the few friends that knew, because not a lot of persons knew about what was happening.
It's interesting that you're focusing on others around you when you were the one that experienced such a grief. If hypothetically, let's say we have a child and the child dies, like the actual physical child dies, that I can understand where you are looking out for others around you. But you were the one in the position, you were the one carrying the twins. So who was looking out for you? Who checked on you to ensure that you were okay? Because for 4 years, you were in denial and you had your own internal battles, I assume. So who was looking out for you and how did you deal with all of this?
So at the time in 2017, switching over into 2018, I got very good at convincing people that I'm fine. And because growing up as the once hyper independent, I am okay, the people around me got so used to me being together, and taking care of everyone else. And so it was easy for me to convince people that, I'm a good man. And they would believe me because on the outside, they would see a progressive, prospering person, right? And so for them, they swiftly moved on, And so the "are you okay?" checking in, because of that purpose, kind of died down. Everybody just kind of continued with their lives. And so there wasn't anyone really outside of the normal friends who be like, "Oh, you good?" But not checking good because of what has
Yeah.
happened, but just generally checking in, you know? So it was just me, myself, and God.
Walk me through that exact moment when you had that crash. Where were you? What were you
Oh
doing?
gosh. Somebody of all the years, because I would have heard Happy Mother's Day before that, right? And it didn't bother me, or so I thought.
Yeah.
Um, and 4 years later, somebody said Happy Mother's Day. I was at home and I felt this overwhelming emotion of anger, of hatred, of just bitterness, and all of it came crashing down where like my body and my mind said, it's time to process this. Like, we've been keeping you together and going, but now I'm tired of holding it all. We need to, and I just started bawl. Like, I just started crying. Crying seems such a nice word to use. I started to bawl uncontrollably, as if somebody had just died for me. And it was at that point, all of the emotions all at once came crashing down, and I got bitter. I got sore. I got angry. I started to feel like I was losing myself. And not only was that trauma processing coming up, it was trauma from as far back as 7 years old. So it was all of the things that would have happened over my lifetime that I had not processed, just coming back into this one moment, and everything crumbled.
You mentioned anger, hate. Who were you angry at? Who did you hate?
I was angry at myself. I was angry at God. I was angry at my body. I was angry at the person I was with at the time. I was angry at everybody who had a child and I did not. Yeah. I was angry at the world,
Were you stuck?
literally.
How long were you stuck in this phase and what did you do to get out? Did you allow yourself to grieve and to heal?
I can't say how long I was stuck in there, because my godson came along in that journey, and I remember his mother very hesitant to ask me to be his godmother because I was still, sensitive. She was still sensitive to what was happening. And I remember reluctantly wanting to accept her proposal. And I guess that little part of me that had a little hope, I didn't even know that it existed. But when she asked, I felt this responsibility come over me, like I need to be there for him. So much so that when she went into labor, I had a go bag in Kingston ready to drive her all the way to Hanover to, experience the delivery of. But at the same time, I remember my work environment, I just couldn't function. I couldn't do anything. Procrastination was a thing. Chronic procrastination was a thing. And I just felt out of control of self, my mind, and I knew I needed to do something. And so one summer, I remember talking to my boss because he realized that, I was not being progressive or proactive as much at work. And for him, work takes a lot of mental effort, you know? If you're not there mentally, you can't really progress in the work. And so he agreed to allow me time off for about, it was 3 weeks, but it felt like 3 months. Yeah. And in that time, I literally shut off. So there was no WhatsApp. The only way you can reach me is if you call me or you send me an email. There's nothing. And in that moment, in that time, I forced myself to really face the pain, to face God, and face myself. Healing, continued healing, or more intentional healing began.
Yeah. So I guess this is the start of the journey to go back to school and study psychology. But before we get into that, you mentioned age 7. What happened at age 7?
Without going into too much detail, because it's not my story to tell, but for me is when I experienced or when I can remember experiencing home dysfunction between my parents. And it was very, 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 very intense because at an early age, or at that point, is when I remember I had to become like a mother to my siblings, and just that well put together person in the home in spite of what was happening is when I remember that started happening. So as far back as 7 years old.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. So, what was your day-to-day life like prior to pregnancy and post-pregnancy dealing with the grieving process?
Mm. Prior to pregnancy, because before I got pregnant, I did have a dream that I was going to get pregnant early up in the year. I just didn't take it seriously because I'm like, I didn't understand at the time how God spoke to me, or I took it for granted because I usually dream stuff, right? And so I was just focused on building my relationship, thinking that we're going to get married, because this person was my best friend, working towards also achieving buying my first home, because God had told me in a casual conversation with friends, oh, I'm gonna buy my house in 2 years. And so the 2 years started in 2017 over into 2018, because I purchased my first home in 2018, right? So it was preparing for that. It was delaying all the gratifications. It was selling my car because I know I needed to pull back the money to save some more. It was moving from one apartment to the next to save more money. And so it was building, building with this person, building up myself, getting ready to go back to school, know that, God confirmed psychology or psychiatrist. I'm there to help people heal their mind, because I thought I was going to be a surgeon, cut people open, all that stuff. But God is like, no, it's towards their mind. So there's a lot of building and formation happening at before, you know. And so when I officially realized I was pregnant in the November, and I was in New York, I finally decided to get a pregnancy test, or 3 pregnancy tests, because I was just again in denial. Because before I left Jamaica, my boyfriend at the time, he said, you're pregnant. I'm like, nah, it's probably, because at the time we started to have, and I said it in my book, a lot of sex, right? Because we were trying not to have. And so we were having a lot more sex than usual. So I'm like, oh, it's probably changes in my body, hormonal, my period soon come. That I was telling myself all the excuses.
Yeah.
Deep down, I'm like, this probably is a possibility. And so when I was like, all right, you need to, because it's November, it's Thanksgiving, it's in New York, food around, and me love food. Like, I love food. And I couldn't eat any of it because I was feeling nauseous and all sorts of food aversion. And I'm like, this is weird. If this is some period symptom, then boy, this is different, because food, what? So I came up with an excuse, and I had gone to the pharmacy with my grandfather, who, because they didn't even know. When I found out, they didn't know. I think they found out like years later when I started to tell the story, because I was very careful with who I shared with. And so got the pregnancy test, 3 of them. The first one, I was like, probably not working. Let's try the next one. And I tried the next one and the same thing. And then the final digital one that said pregnant. And I felt like my whole life shattered, like, pins and needles, that feeling of pins. I started feeling it not just in my feet, but in my hands. All of a sudden, the place felt like it was spinning. There was so many things happening at the time. And so when I came back to Jamaica, and, we went to do the ultrasound, and not 1 heartbeat, but 2 heartbeats. Life just took a different turn. Because I'm actually pregnant now. Like, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Like, they're babies.
Babies growing inside. Yeah.
Inside of me, and I was transitioning between 8 weeks to 9 weeks, like crazy, right? And I could feel my body change. It's so weird. I could feel my body change. I could feel the muscles in my pelvic region change as a woman. Like you could feel the change. You can feel, for me, some women report not having a connection to the fetus, the baby. But for me, I felt connected to them. I felt like they were in there, like I was giving life to something inside. And so I felt connected from heartbeats, from hearing the heartbeats,
Yeah.
you know? And it also shifted my family because my mother got excited. She all start put Amazon cart together, and
Yeah.
we're just we're just at 8-9 weeks. She all put names together just at 8-9 weeks. So his family was excited. His dad, it would have been his first grandchildren. He was really, his mother was excited. Both families were excited. My sisters were excited, and so it shifted a lot for everybody. Still on track for owning home, all of that stuff. And then, I don't know, in the space of 2 weeks or 3 weeks or months of finding out, everything changed. Everything changed because something felt off. All of a sudden, the space that felt full, like it felt lifeless. Then going to the doctor, finding out that there's no more heartbeats. And when the doctor said you're not pregnant anymore, I said, okay, cool. Like literally. I was okay, cool. Like who says that?
I mean,
And
it's probably the shock that why you responded like that. Well, I'm not the expert in that field.
well,
Yeah.
in not just shock, but for me in chaos, and I guess it's probably why I'm good at what I do, right? In chaos, I'm usually centered and focused, thinking about solutions and safety. So I'm not one to freak out and my head is not on my body. I'm more controlled in this space and thinking about safety, of everyone and self and solutions. Like, okay, how do we get out of this? When things are stabilized, then I have my moment of meltdown, which I now have to manage, right? In that moment, I was like, all right, cool. Went to my gynecologist the following day, and she was like, we need to do surgery ASAP because it wasn't just a miscarriage, it was a missed miscarriage or silent abortion where my body didn't tell me that something was wrong. Typically in a miscarriage, the body responds
There's
when
stuff.
experience stuff, and they know what's happening because you can feel it, you can see it, In this case, I did not feel it or see it because in my mind and how my body was progressing, if we did a pregnancy test, it would say that I'm pregnant because my body was still changing while inside my womb, there was no life anymore. Yeah. And so hence abortion or missed abortion, missed miscarriage, because you miss the signs and the symptoms and the warnings, right? And at the time, typically in a miscarriage, the cervix of a woman is open to release the stuff that's inside, right? The body does that on its own. With a missed miscarriage, the cervix is closed because the body is preparing for nurturing babies. So it meant that in the surgery that was done, they had to forcibly open that. And I know I'm being very graphic and transparent. But
That's
it's just the truth of so they had to do that, open, get them out. And then after that operation, I could feel like there's something that was not there. Like it's wearing your favorite watch or wearing a ring. When it's not on your finger, you feel like something is missing. So I felt like something was missing inside of me, even though my body, because even after the surgery, believe it or not, I had to learn how to squeeze milk out of my boobs. I'm told that because it was twins, like things progressed a little bit faster and more intense than if it was just one. Like there was an excessive overproduction of things. And so I had to learn how to squeeze milk like substance out of my boobs for a long time. So it was so So many things. And remember, I tell you before the pregnancy, I was in planning building states. And I
Yeah.
think that too was the reason why I continued in that mindset for like 4 years, because I did buy my apartment in 2018, September
Awesome.
2018. And I did buy a new car and I did start a new job. It's same Sagicor, but in a different unit in
Yeah.
September 2018. So a lot was happening. Yeah. A lot was happening in the midst
All
of
right.
all of that.
So post pregnancy or post miscarriage and post recovery healing, did you get professional help, or the help that you got was you going back to school to do psychology?
I got all of it. Professional help, spiritual help, back to school to the psychology, spiritual help. So I had and I have a therapist. I also did healing and deliverance at church. I also went back to school to the psychology officially. I did trauma informed care courses, as a trauma specialist. Went back to study a short course on neuropsychology.
Yeah.
It was all of it all at once. Going through, God calls it on the job training, because while doing this and now sharing my story, I was meeting other women who would have gone through it, but at the same time too, I was meeting women who it just happened to. And so I had to be that source of, you can get through it. So it was my healing was all the things that you can think about, And so when I tell people I can help or I know, because I had to go through the different modalities of healing. It wasn't just talk therapy, there was some form of art therapy, officially like an art therapist going through that. Dance therapy, the different kinds of modalities of healing. I had it.
You mentioned other women, and I don't want to jump ahead of my script, but why aren't more women open and transparent about this? Is it embarrassment? Is it something else?
It's embarrassment, it's shame, it's guilt, it's pressure, it's the feeling of failure, because this has happened and then it didn't happen. And then you
Yeah.
start to blame yourself for not being able to produce, which, especially if you're a person that actually is looking forward to kids. Um, and so when that doesn't happen, it forces you to question. Well, at least for me, it forces you to question if, one, God made me properly, because I'm not able to do what I believe women with wombs supposed to be able to do. And so it at the core of that, it forces you to question your identity. And if it is that your identity is riddled in unhealed trauma and unprocessed hurt, it becomes easier to go down the rabbit hole of I'm not good enough and I was never good enough, or I can't even produce babies. Or if you at the time, like myself, was, is a Christian, single and pregnant, marriage, you're not married, people don't know that you're having sex because, you have a baby or you had a baby. The shame of all of it.
Yeah.
The unknown of not knowing who you are, we don't want to talk about it, And so a lot of women, the pain of it all convinces you that you're alone. And it's easier to stay in that bubble than speak. Because if you speak, you feel like you're going to be judged or
Yeah.
misunderstood, or questions come in that are just so insensitive. Even people with good intentions ask just bad questions,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And you can't really blame them because they don't know, right? So it's all of that riddled in that. But for me, there came a time when God was like, it's time to share. And even though I didn't want to, the conviction was so, so strong that I had to. And when I started to share, purpose started to unlock. And when I started to share, some people couldn't understand why I was so vulnerable in sharing, because they're like, maybe that's something you should talk to a psychologist about. And I'm like, but you don't even know my story. Because at the time when I started sharing, I would have gone through psychologists, healing and deliverance, all of the stuff, right? But some people who also struggle with vulnerability, when somebody else starts to be vulnerable, they don't know how to respond to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started to share, and it opened up the door to meeting other women who share now, women who say, I've never told anybody, but since and you realize that there's actually a community of us out there,
Yeah.
who would have gone through this thing. There's a community of women who would have actually given birth to children and lost them like months
Mm-hmm.
later.
Yeah.
And so it shows you the power of vulnerability and sharing and opening up, right? You
Power
that
of the
alone.
story. The power of the
Power
story.
of the
See?
story, that
Yes.
exactly.
As I always say, people connect with people first. So yeah, once they connect with
The
you, then
stories.
they're
Yeah.
open
And then
to
purpose,
sharing.
I gave birth to purpose.
Yeah, definitely. Now,
So
you're a corporate girly. You bought your first apartment. I'm assuming you were in a well-paid job at Sagicor. So why did you decide to give all of that up? Why?
because my Father in heaven said so. It's as simple as that. So 3 years before I left Sagicor was when God was like, it's time to go. You could feel like, like you feel like you're supposed to be doing something. It's like you get up out of your bed and you have your mind set on doing something, and you know you're supposed to be doing something, but you can't remember what you're supposed to be doing. And it's not about remembering, but just giving you an idea of the feeling that I was feeling. I feel like there's something I needed to be doing. There's a shift I needed to make. But because I was so familiar with familiarity and comfort, I was like, no, we're not moving. Maybe I never hear God good. Probably it was just in my mind. The fear of the unknown and not knowing how I'd navigate the space, and also not knowing what I'd be doing, because I know that people gravitate towards me. I know that there is a passion to help people to heal, but I didn't quite know what that looked like. And it was not a motivational speaker. It was not a mental health advocate. It was
Yeah.
not a psychologist. It was not a psychiatrist. And I didn't know what that word was until, being obedient in this space of putting myself out there, going on platforms, speaking, then to writing this book. The third year, 2023, I remember coming from Panama, and God was like, you need to leave. Like, don't make 2023 pass and you don't leave. Like it's a parent telling you, like, so when they're talking that tone and that lock eye look, you just
Yeah.
know, say, all right, this is your last chance. You just know. Like there are no other chances after this. Like you just have to do it. And so that's how I felt when I heard that voice, that conviction again. And so nervously I wrote up my resignation letter. Um and I sent it in. I remember sending it in. And when I sent it in, I remember I started writing in my first book, because God was like, I have 3 books for you to write, and now it's the time. So it's as if everything that I was putting off or delaying because of not moving started to come like full force all at once, because wrote the book. Then I was like, oh, maybe I could just plan a simple book launch, just a small little cafe type of setting. And God was like, no, I'm going to set the standard for you of how you will show up in this space. And I mean, I think you've seen the recap of the book launch trauma symposium that I had. It was beyond me.
Yeah.
Like the level of excellence or execution. Ask me how it all came together. I don't know. All I knew was that I started to share again the vision, writing this book, completing it, connecting with my book coach, who I would have known for years, and now she becoming very instrumental, as Crystal Day, in helping me produce this book.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden I had 15 people who said they want to volunteer at this event for free. Then all of a sudden you had people who were like, I'll invest in your vision. I'll give you this discounted or almost for free just because I believe in your vision. And I'm like, all of it working. I even ended up with a project manager,
Yeah.
like, because she believed in the vision. And together they helped me to execute excellence beyond anything that I could ever do on my own. Left Sagicor with a whole heap of savings and investing because I'm an investment girly.
Yeah.
So even though I did leave corporate, I did leave with some amount of money, like, all right, come in, no me I left go do, but just in case I have stuff where I can pay my mortgage and pay my car loan, because I had set up stuff in a way where when I leave, I don't have so many debts other than my car and my mortgage. And worst case scenario, I can always rent out the car or sell it
Yeah.
or rent out my house. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, so it wasn't like, oh, let me just leave. It was a process of, all right, God, you said I must leave. Let's now prepare as best as I can, And then having done that, we released the book, did the big launch that I don't know how we pulled it off, but we did. Officially starting entrepreneurship journey, registering a company, and then fine-tuning all of the services, what that looks like, finding a name for what I do, trauma-informed specialist, and then finding that community. Not even finding, God pushed them in my path to the point where one of my mentor is the president, the founder of Arizona Trauma Institute, who does offer trauma-informed and resilience certifications, etc. And just meeting people in this space, different executives and directors of different companies, allowing me to introduce to them this specific niche of healthcare, mental healthcare, physical healthcare, because trauma is also in the body, right? And realizing that, talk therapy alone is not enough, but our bodies do keep the score of experiences. And so we need to know how to now regulate all of that, like giving birth to that and allowing it to grow. I say it's still growing. I give persons the imagery of, that seed experiment that you did in bio or science class, where you put the seed in the cup or in the paper, and you have to you have to nurture it, and then it starts to one little root come up. That's why I see CKM Healing Consultancy, like it reached the stage now where you can put it in a pot because it have roots and so. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah.
So you did psychology while still working at the bank, right? Or you left the bank and
I was
so
at
you did that.
Sagicor. Yeah, so I left the bank and I went to Sagicor Life, where we did employee benefits division. So it was providing health care packages to corporate entities. Yeah, so I went back to school while still doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you quit the job now, or when you told persons that you're quitting, what was the feedback like? Are you crazy?
Well,
What are you going to do with life?
really, so people who were in my circle, because almost every year leading up to that, I'm like, I tell them I'm gonna leave, right? So they kind of knew, and they saw what I was doing, because it got to a point where people started to send people to me because they realized that I'm in the mental health space. That time I never moved it, that people used to send people to me and come to me, and I'd have to refer them to other people who are in this space, like officially doing the thing. And so when I did say, I'm officially leaving, persons were not surprised because they knew that I am passionate about helping people to heal, etc., etc. Persons who did not know of my story and of the journey were very surprised. Like, why don't you just stay? Because it was a type of job where you could have stayed and did other things, but I feel like out of obedience, I needed to make that move step. Because the environment started to become one where, not that the persons were bad or anything, but internally I could feel like I am no longer fit for this space. And so I had to move out of obedience, but also shifting the atmosphere of what's to come as a result of being obedient and allowing space now for things that were assigned to me and people that were assigned to me to now find me because I'm no longer hidden, you know? So people who didn't know of the journey or of my story were very shocked, but people who knew, they're like, oh yeah, it's about time.
Yeah,
To the
yeah,
point
it's
where
about time.
now, right? To the point where now people are like, boy, if you told me that you worked at Sagicor, I'd tell you you'd be lying because this seems like what you've been doing all of your life.
Yeah,
Like
I
that
thought so
part
too.
does not exist, So I came into alignment of what was already prepared by God for me.
Yeah. All right. So you started the business in 2022. What did day one look like? Even though it is your passion, we still have to talk about revenue. How long did it take you to get that first client, and
Oh
how much
gosh.
did you charge?
So the journey of capturing people's stories, helping them to realize that there's hope to heal, started in 2019 with 2020 with Reach Inspire Ignites, which is a nonprofit that captured people's testimonies and shared with others to know that they're not alone. Out of that, we did a mini movie called I Was Only 12. Through a grant from UNICEF and JAFTA, and we literally converted somebody's testimony into a real live mini movie, which was
Yeah.
so cool. And then that chapter ended, and then came CKM Healing Consultancy. So before, I was not making money or collecting money for anything because I didn't know, like, what am I doing, And so it was in 2024, because I'd left Sagicor December 18, 2023. 2024 when I officially registered CKM Healing Consultancy and trying to figure out pricing and costs, and because at the time, or still, there isn't anybody here that really does what I do except for there's this other company that does trauma-informed care along with the general psychoeducation stuff, talk therapy, but there was no reference point for it here in Jamaica. So I had to go outside to really see what people are charging. And even outside, because outside of Jamaica, people are more big on healing
Yeah.
trauma than here. So the costs that were being shown outside, I couldn't bring them here because Jamaica, you know? And so my first client, First Regional Corporate Credit Union, they booked me for it was a 4-hour retreat, and they actually brought me to a hotel with their managers and middle managers
Yeah.
to do a full day of trauma-informed education and emotion regulation activity. And that one, it was about $400,000. And I'm like, okay, all right, so this can work. It can work. So this was 2024. Yes, 2024. Because remember saying that I left Sagicor with funds, so
Yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of paying the mortgage and stuff like that, I was fine.
Mm-hmm.
For 2024, it was fine.
Yeah.
And then 2025, there's entrepreneurs who tell you that there comes a point in your journey where nothing now work.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing you do seems to be working.
Yeah.
And you have to just stay focused and plant the seeds regardless, because you know with all your heart that this is what you are supposed to be doing. And so I went through that where nothing was working, and I'm like, but God, you called me to this, so what? Like, you can't. 2024 was so amazing and big event and all of that stuff, and now 2025, it's like for the first six months, nothing now going. Like, I'm sending out the proposals, I'm talking to people, engaging with people, I'm doing all these speaking engagements, but no, like, doors are opening, but I'm just at the front part of the door looking at the opportunity. I'm like, but God, what's the point of opening the door halfway if you're not going to make me go fully in,
Mm-hmm.
To the point of thinking that, okay, maybe this season up and I need to go find a job, apply for all sorts of jobs, and none of that was working out. None of it.
Yeah.
And in that moment, somebody said to me, I'm at that stage where you really, really test to see if you're called to entrepreneurship. Yeah. You really, really test to see if this is what you're called to do. And it also was for me learning that I can't do this without God at all. No matter how much you push certain doors, if they're just not time and not for you, you cannot. If God said that, Him not allowing it to open. And then sometimes He may open my door just to show you that it's not time.
Yeah.
But none of that was happening. And I had to stay focused, stay the course, bulk up at times, lose weight that I did not have because I didn't understand what was happening, and it was just like, do I really want to do this? But at the same time, not having any other choice but to push forward because nothing is working. Not even getting a job is working. It's not that I'm not qualified, And then I remember the season shifted in, what was it, May, June,
Yeah.
because all of a sudden people who owed me from 2024 start pay back. So it's like a stream open up now, a little stream, and you're like, oh, something changed, man. Because people start, people start book and people start pay, individual services start coming, and the corporate clients start reaching back out, and then all of a sudden it's like the engine finally start, and I'm like, whoo, God, like just in the nick of time.
Yeah.
Just in the nick of time, because things were due. Just in the nick of time, God was like, watch a style, yeah. And him just,
True.
and the season shifted, and then all of a sudden the overflow came, and the little trickling leading up to the waterfall overflow of opportunities, paid opportunities. And I'm like, oh gosh, God, all in the effort of Him showing me that, one, this is His business, not mine. It's
Yeah.
also a ministry for me. It's not just because it's cute and mental health is a thing. This is purpose work. It's ministry work. This is why Chantaeu Munroe, was created. Like I found why I was created. That's a big deal.
Big deal. Yeah.
That is a big deal. And who I was thinking that I could figure it out all in just 1 year of having fully established this, right?
Right. So you mentioned 400,000, which is about $2,600 from one client. When you saw that money in your account, how often did you check to make sure like this is real?
Didn't check often. So because I used to work at the bank doing mortgages, loans and stuff, so like I would have, even though it was not in my account, and then when I started working at Employee Benefits Division, I started to see money like that and more in my account.
Okay, awesome.
So it's like I got used to seeing funds like that and not being rattled by it, because I know that I saw it come, saw it go. Right? And so it was exciting. It was amazing, because now it started to bring, research, like what you have set out to do can work. Like people will pay for it. Like, when it first came, I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. Like, it's happening. Oh my gosh. But it was like, all right, so how do we multiply that now? Like, how do we keep that going? Finding the services, constantly sitting at God's feet. Like, how do you want me to do this? Bring myself to others in this space, thinking that I need to do it like them. And God is like, no, what I'm calling you to do is different. It involves you including me. It involves tying in the science of trauma with the principles of God to show people that healing is possible with Him, not without Him, And so I was called to stand out, not to fit in or fit into a mold of what already exists. And that was hard. That was very, 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 very hard, because opportunities came that looked good, that had all the right sayings and people and resources and access and money. And God is like, no. And I'm like, what do you mean? Bills due. What?
Yeah.
And out of just continuous submission and obedience, He continues to pull people to me and me, push me towards people and opportunities that were better than what I would have rejected. And so it's a constant journey of, all right, God, what do you think of this opportunity, or which opportunities should I accept? Should I look out for? And which opportunities are not mine? Which people should I be talking to? Which interviews should I be doing? Because not every podcast I'm supposed to be on. Not everybody that says, oh, you're such a great speaker, I want to have you on my show. All of them you must give access to. And so the journey of stewarding well what has been given to me, and then stewarding the people that are also attached to me, has become a big deal, and so it didn't freak me out. It didn't like, oh my gosh, let me check it if it's still there, because I would have gotten accustomed to seeing a lot of,
Yeah.
which is good, because it meant that I was now focused,
We live in a secretive culture, especially when it comes to trauma. How do you go about finding clients, especially in this area of personal and trauma?
hmm So clients actually find me. The more I show up, clients, they reach out the more I show up. And also, showing up looks like, because remember I told you there was a time I sent out proposals to corporate entities.
Yeah.
So sending out those proposals, some of them started to become real fruits, like actual what you call it, converted sales. And then the more I showed up, it's as if God just gave me a platform, because this week I'm on Nationwide, CVM, TVJ, in the Gleaner, and all these different things. So the
Yeah.
more the more I showed up, those seeds became real, and then people just come. You have some people, like some of my one-on-one clients, they know what I do, so they refer people. People refer a lot of people. Some people, I show up a lot on their social media platforms, because again, the more I show up is the more, I guess, the algorithm works, and I pop up in spaces and places. So people find me and people refer me. And then of course, me putting out information, putting out workshops, people find me and I find them.
Yeah. So what's the difference between trauma and therapy?
hmm
So
So I think you probably want to ask trauma-informed care
yeah,
and,
trauma-informed care, yeah.
just therapy, because trauma-informed care is a type of therapy. Um, and so talk therapy, which is one modality, because you have art therapy and EMDR therapy and all sorts of different ones. Talk therapy is what people typically go to, where you go to a therapist and you sit and you talk about the past, and you deal with the mind of what was, what is, and what should not be. Yeah. And you put perspectives to the situations that you would have gone through, and you create a door of hope for the person. Yeah. By creating a shift in perspective and understanding. Because people, when we don't understand things, we freak out, and then nothing makes sense, and then we catastrophize. We start to big up something that is just one dot compared to the bigger picture. Yeah. And so sometimes people need help to walk through that by talking about it. Yeah. Which is impactful. But then trauma-informed care looks at what's happened inside of your body, what has happened to your brain, your nervous system as a result of going through a particular experience. So it's no longer just the thoughts that you think and the perspectives that you've now have because of the experience. It's now what has happened biologically, neurologically to your brain and body as a result of going through this thing. And because we now recognize that trauma is that thing that has happened inside of your body on a biological, neurological level, um, it impacts how you show up as an adult. Especially from childhood experiences that would have happened, it does impact or set the tone how you show up as an adult, meaning how you receive things like love, how you give love, how you receive business opportunities,
Yeah.
how you sabotage yourself out of those same opportunities, how you look on a brethren and say, oh, I love you, and receive that, you know, how you even receive hugs. How is it that sometimes you probably wake up some mornings and you just feel your heart racing and you're overly anxious and you get sweaty palms? Like, why is that? A lot of times, talk therapy does not address that. Talk therapy addresses your mind a lot of times. And so nobody really truly focuses on the nervous system and the body, which is what trauma is. The focus and shift on the nervous system, how it shows up, why your body responds from hearing a bike go pow and thinking that is disaster, or why is it that for some people their phone rings and they start get anxious like something is wrong.
Yeah.
You know, it's understanding those responses or coping mechanisms that would have developed, and then helping the person to destructure all of those responses and mapping out another way to show up, knowing the source of these responses. Yeah. And so that's how talk therapy is different from trauma-informed care, because now we're looking at how do we help your nervous system to become well and safe, and know that the situation that you'd have gone through that programmed your nervous system to respond that way is no longer present. So now how do I take charge of my mind and body and be a person who is aware of my responses, and choosing something else? So your actions are not dictated by some unknown past that you have not processed. It's not dictated by the drilling that said you're not good enough. You now know that you are good enough. However, my brain and body learned how to survive feelings of inadequacy and insecurities.
Yeah.
And I now understand how it responds to that, and I now know that I can choose otherwise. And so that is trauma-informed care, helping you to recognize or train your body and mind to be safe.
Mhm. All right. So you're dealing with heavy work. How do you avoid
Mm.
burnout?
By putting myself on my to-do list. So before I fully stepped into all of what I'm doing now, I did say before that I was doing on-the-job training. There
Yeah.
was a season in my life, or seasons in my life, where and somebody almost unalived themselves. I was in school, I was working full-time, I was showing up at church full-time, and this person was is near and dear to me. And in all of it, I had to push emotions aside because this person is near and dear to me, and show up as the trauma-informed person, as the healing and deliverance person, to really get them the help they need. And I'm like, this is so much. 2 weeks just before exam is about to start, I almost told my teacher I can't do this because
Yeah.
this is a lot. And she was like, well, if you did this, you can't blame the person. It's all on you, because at some point they're going to be okay, and that journey would have passed, and now you're here with your decisions. So make the right decision, and understand that you can go through this. Is just building capacity. And it forced me to really learn how to shut off and shut down. And so back then I had lots of periods of just shutting off, and people didn't understand it. I didn't understand it either. I just knew that I needed to shut off and just step away. But it became the rhythm that I now use to balance, because I now understand what anxiousness feels like and where it's coming from. I understand why my head hurts in the different regions that it hurts and what I need to do. And so when I start to feel even in my body the overwhelmed sensation coming up, it's like, when you want to go use the bathroom. It's just that we ignore it. We think that we can hold out and we ignore it. And sometimes our body is like, yeah, we're not hold out anymore, I'm going to go. Or sometimes we even get sick as a result
Yeah.
of holding out, right? But we know, we can sense it. It's the same way when you train your body and your nervous system to sense overwhelm and headache, tension, headaches, etc. Well, I know what I need to do. And if it gets to a point of where I ignore it and then all of a sudden it packed me, I now have to rest. It's my fault because I know. So I've trained my body to detect overwhelm. And when I do sense it coming on, I know that, all right, now after a certain time, I have a non-negotiable shut off. So my phones are on D&D. Sometimes my phone is in the hall or probably in the car. And I'm upstairs either reading a book or watching some series that's not going to stop until 1, 2 a.m. in the morning or just sleeping.
Yeah.
And so I've trained myself to get into that type of rhythm. So I am also non-negotiable on my to-do list.
All right. I don't know if I should ask this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What's one story throughout your experience with clients that has sticked with you and maybe changed how you see healing?
One story that is the core of what helps me to keep going. I remember questioning my worth and all of what I'm doing and whether this makes sense, because the journey is not easy, right?
Yeah.
It's becoming someone you've never been, and just not having a framework for that, but you just know that you're supposed to be doing greatness and more, and you just keep going anyways, like one step at a time, you know? It's not easy. And I remember one person, I've never met her, don't know her, still have not met her. But she was a follower on Instagram. I didn't know this because a lot of people follow me on Instagram. And I remember for some strange reason, she posted 3 things and I liked those 3 things. 2 years later, I learned, because she shared that she had gone through miscarriage and she was at a dark place where she wanted to unalive herself. And in that moment, the notification of my likes came in, and that simple action made her feel seen, and she did not proceed with that. That is a big deal. It's crazy to me how I've never met this person to have such an impact on this person. And what? In that moment, you know, like in that very moment of about to doing the act, my notifications came in, and that to me is every time I think about that, even though years have passed, it gives me the chills. It makes me feel emotional, because I'm like, I have to be careful with how I steward this space, with how I show up, because people are receiving hope by just showing up, you know, and it matters. It matters. No matter how insignificant what I share might feel sometimes, and no matter how small an act might seem, like even just yesterday, I went on a date with God, a planning date with God. And some people I know wanted to come to this space where I was, up in the hills, Cafe Blue, Irish Town. And they didn't quite know how to find it, but God was already telling me that I'm gonna have to help them to navigate it. So I was thinking of calling them to let them know, oh, I'm going to wait on you halfway and we just go. But I proceeded, and I went up there, and I had a feeling they were gonna call because they couldn't find their way, and they called. And I paused what I was doing to help navigate to get to that spot. And at the end of the day, the person reached out to me with a long voice note, an 8 minutes voice note, telling me how helpful I've always been from the day they met me. And they've on and off known me for the last probably 10 years or so. Not close friends, we're just in the same spaces at different points in time. And she was like, you know, you're so nurturing and caring, and I just thank you so much for showing up and helping and be present and being kind. You don't have a lot of kind people nowadays. And I'm just I cry, because I'm like, boy, God, you just, and I said to them, you know, it's what people experience through me is as a result of my relationship with God and the work that He has done in me. That kindness, that gentleness, it's all because of what? The work I've done clearly, and the work God has done, that you get to experience the fruit of that, you know? And I can't take all of the credit for that. And it just said to me more that I matter. What I carry matters, and people need it. It's not just about me. I have sisters who I know that they pay attention. I have family members, I know that they pay attention. And if I can be that hope in a space where I remember when I didn't have hope, and now I feel like I found some of the remedy, not all of it, because I don't know
Yeah.
everything. And if I can share that every day with somebody not knowing what they're going through, just for them not to unalive themselves, then I have to. I have to keep showing up.
If you could talk to the version of yourself still sitting at Sagicor in 2017, what would you say to her?
Just do it. Just do it. It all works out for your good and for God's glory. So whatever it is that He's asked you to do, just do it.
Do you,
Just do it and don't look back.
yeah. Do you still have hopes of being a mother?
Of course! When healing came, the way it did, and through my godson, I am now the happy, excited person that I look forward to being a mommy. I look forward to being a wife. I look forward to family love and just sharing that love with little people who are an extension of me. Had you asked me this question a couple of years ago, I'd tell you no, because I was trying to math out in every detail how I could not have kids. Let me just put it that way. I was trying to work out how I could make myself not have kids.
Why?
Because I was in pain. I was being driven by pain. I was not healed as I am now. And I did not want to go through that pain again. And so in that space where I was angry at everybody and everything, I wanted to make sure, or I was thinking of ways to make sure that I could not have kids. I didn't have to experience that.
Yeah. If there's a woman out there who's gone through trauma and she's contemplating a career shift or starting her own business, what advice would you give to her?
The advice that just came to mind might not suit everyone, because not everyone has a relationship with God and not everybody believes in God. Yeah, so I want to make that distinction. And so it would be to trust God. If you strongly believe and know in your heart that this is there's something that you should be doing, and you know that you should be doing it, but it looks scary because you've never done it. It looks scary because not a lot of people are doing it. It looks scary because society says that you should be this. It looks scary because family says that you should be doing this. Trust God, the author and finisher and the writer of your life. The reason why you take your breath every morning is telling you to step into something that He has already prepared for you. I'd rather trust that than a man who can only see out the road there, down the road there, And so trust God. What does that mean? That means that it might look like you need to spend some time in prayer. It might mean that you share what you're sensing with your spiritual leaders or mentors. You share it with people who are above, who understand the journey, and have them help you to pray. Have them help you to pray about it. Have them help you to perhaps work on writing the vision, like writing out what that could look like. What does that look like? What does that mean? Develop a structure, develop a system as best as possible with God's help and their help, and map out how you're going to navigate it, and then trust God. So it's seeking wise counsel, mentors, seeking the guidance of God, and then trusting Him.
Where do you see CKM in 5 years?
Oh gosh, 5 years start already. Next month we're going to be 2 years old, which is a big deal. I'm already on that journey of 5 years, but I'm looking to develop a one-stop hub where people can come and receive all the different modalities of healing. That does include a gym center, that does include art therapy, that does include a rage room, that does include
The rage room sounds nice, so yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That does include mindfulness meditation, that does include nature, And so I'm believing God for the establishment of a layers of healing facility nestled in nature where people can come and receive healing of the different kinds. Even if that does not look like talk therapy immediately, but you just need to release and build up that resilience, you can come to that space and be catered to mind, body, spirit. Yeah. And it also looks like expanding that to the Caribbean. Yeah. Big things, but I'm like
Big
all I
things.
talk about it, I'm
Yeah.
like, God, you see how me little? What do you mean we're gonna do these big things? But my faith has been built up in such a way where once God says it, then it's scary. It's very scary. But if Him says so, it can be done. I just
Definitely.
now need to figure out the steps and the people and spaces I need to be in to get that done. And that has already started. And so there's nothing that's impossible for God. Once I give Him my yes, Him just always work things out. So as scary and as big as it is, and I don't know how I'm going to accomplish any of those things, my answer is yes. Yeah. And so it's expanding physically, geographically. It's becoming Dr. whatever my last name will be at the time. It's becoming the trauma-informed specialist, even though at that time I would have already secured my PhD in trauma psychology and neuropsychology, which looks at the brain and body. I'm still gonna keep the term trauma specialist, not psychologist. So 5 years doctor, whatever my last name going to be at the time,
Mm-hmm.
a facility, and just continuing to show up and saying yes to this call.
Do you have any regrets?
No. The reason I say that is because all of what has happened has made me into all of me now. And I can't imagine not having the intricacies and the different pieces and parts that have happened, because I wouldn't have this story. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have this testimony. I wouldn't have met the different people who helped to shape who Chantaeu Munroe has become. To say, and this is not to bash anybody that might have regrets, but for me personally, to say that there are regrets is like I'm saying I doubt that God knows what He's doing. And no matter how life turned out, even in the chaos, I strongly believe that God is working out everything for my good and His glory, no matter how bad it is. And so I just trust God that, even if I go make a mistake, it's all gonna work out, and it's all a part of the plan into becoming who I am. Like my second book is literally my life. As I live it, I'm writing it. And so it does take into account all of the mistakes and the missteps and so no.
Can we expect that book?
Lord Jesus.
And is there a title? Is there a working title yet?
No, man, so there is a title. There are 15 chapters of the book. I actually like it better than the first book. This second book is called Drop the Ball, The Harsh Truth About Letting Go. It's a remedy of all the things that you need to let go of to maintain purpose. That is friendship, relationship, lifestyle, mindset, environments, whether it's business, church environments. It's food. I mean, I cut off my locks. I had locks up until some point in 2024, I cut off my
Yeah.
locks. All the things that you must let go of, down to diet, to maintain purpose, including spaces that are familiar. I think it's chapter 5 or chapter 10 that talks about when familiarity becomes limitations. The things that we are familiar with becomes the things that have limit us. And so I'm excited for that book. I'm looking forward to it. I'm committing to releasing it definitely before my birthday in August.
So my final question to you is, what do you want people to understand about trauma that most still don't?
Trauma is one thing. When it's not addressed, it does not heal with time. We have this saying that everything heals with time.
Yeah.
No. Intentional work heals trauma over time. But trauma manifests itself in diabetes, heart attack, stroke when we do not deal with it. Yeah. And so stress, because that is what leads up to trauma. Stress is not the problem. Stress is not a bad thing. Unmanaged, unreleased stress is the problem. Because when you decide to go to the gym, putting your body through that is stress on the body. But because you want a certain desired goal, you push yourself through it and your body adjusts. And then you stretch and you warm down and you release the stress. It's the same thing. When there is unmanaged stress in the body, it leads to trauma, and that leads to very, 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 very unhealthy things that you end up to the doctor for, and we don't want that. So it's not, you're not stuck, you're not frozen. You can actually pick up the pieces and move forward, but it takes a lot of work. Because you are like one thing, and I know we're wrapping up, one thing I always say to people, imagine that you are 35 years old or you're probably 50 years old. You've decided as a result of watching this podcast that I want to start to heal and unpack stuff. If you are 50 years old, imagine that you, on that day which you've seen this, you have decided to unpack a 50-year-old suitcase. That takes time. It takes time. So give yourself grace. Stress is not bad. Unmanaged stress is what is the problem. And you can heal one layer at a time.
Chantaeu, you know, as a storyteller, I've learned that the most beautiful chapters usually come after the most painful edits. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being raw. Thank you for being honest with me today. Now, the business you see today was born from the grief of 2017. If you're waiting for perfect conditions to start your empire, you're missing the point. The empire is built in the struggle. So subscribe to The Business Behind the Story to hear how the world's most resilient founders build. I'm Stephen Standery. We'll see you in the next chapter.